Hello, welcome to Pike Creek Farm. My name is Renee, and today is a Sunday instead of a Saturday like I normally post my updates, but I wanted to give the full first week of the Three Rivers Challenge for no grocery shopping, using what we have here. And I didn't have to buy anything this week. I know I'd mentioned that if we needed creamer or lettuce salad fixings, I might have to get some of that stuff, but we don't, and we won't have to this week. So we're doing good. And I'm gonna give a review, show you what we had for our menu for this week, and it was pretty good. We had good stuff. I even did a video on the one item we had, the chicken divine, and I used up a lot of my pantry items, and there's a lot more to go of excess. I noticed I have like cans of baked beans, plus I also home canned baked beans, and some of the store-bought ones, the date was just like last month or so. That's recommended, so I'm going to use 2 cans of those today, and I'm just gonna keep going through everything and keeping track. I did use my planner. Some of the days got switched around because I didn't feel like making something one day, but we did everything that I said. So here you go. You can watch what I did this week. On Sunday morning, I used some freeze-dried blueberries that I had in the pantry that were open, rehydrated them, and I was going to make a sheet pan pancake. I had some Kodiak pancake mix that needed to be used up too. So the first step was rehydrating the blueberries. Then I got out my quarter sheet pan and I greased it. I had a little blueberry jam that I used to make a syrup to go on afterwards. So here I am mixing up the batter. First I used 1 cup, then there wasn't much batter left, mix left, so I ended up using it all. I added the required amount of milk because I had milk that I needed to use up before it expired, and it was too thick. So I decided to add the rest of the mix and more milk. And this was to make it so it was thin enough to spread in the sheet pan and cover the entire base of the sheet pan. And I was inspired by a recipe from the Pioneer Woman to do this. So I kind of basically followed hers, but using what I had on hand. And I needed more milk because it was very thick. So this time I think it ended up being okay. So here I am mixing it, getting it all incorporated. And when I get it to the right consistency, I will add in the blueberries. But first I need to get this batter so that it's the perfect consistency. And I added some vanilla to give it some oomph, some more flavor. And now I'm draining the blueberries. We don't want all that water in there. Giving them a shake to get the excess off, and then into the batter. And these freeze-dried blueberries rehydrate up perfectly, but they're really good to eat out of the can too. So here it goes into the pan, and I will spread it out evenly and get the blueberries even and the batter even. And this will go in the oven, and it took about 25 minutes. And I was happy with this because I didn't have to stand at a pan and keep frying up pancakes. Now I'm going to melt some butter to spread on top when it comes out of the oven, when it's all brown. And I'm using my brush to get it even across the top. And this just gives it a oomph of flavor and doesn't let the top dry out. And I used this for a few days for breakfast. It warmed up great in the microwave, so it did me for 2 days for breakfast before work. And now I'm taking the little jar of blueberry jam that was part of a Christmas present, and I'm going to add some water and a dash of real maple syrup to it. And that really ended up being good. It really oomphed the flavor of the pancake, and I liked it better than just maple syrup on it. It gave it a burst of flavor with the blueberry. So now I'm going to mix it up and get it all incorporated. Then it will go in the microwave. And now I'm ready to get out of serving. And I didn't serve anything else with this. Since it is the Kodiak pancake mix, it does have protein in it. So it is a filling breakfast. And here we got one piece out. Drizzle of syrup. And then I remembered I had some Ready Whip in the fridge that needed to be used up, so I put that on top. In the morning, I had put chicken on to marinate. I had a chicken that was cut up chicken that needed to be used up. It had been in the freezer for about a year, so I made a marinade with soy sauce and some Italian dressing that I had left over and some other spices, and I let that marinate overnight. Actually, no, it wasn't overnight. I did it first thing in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I put it in the baking dish and poured the rest of the marinade over the top. And this just went in the oven and baked, and I just kept spooning the marinade over, and I served it with some pickled beets and pickled beans and some samosa patties that I made. And that did us for 2 nights. And then I made the chicken divine, and I have a video for this, and this was really good. We had this, plus we had it leftovers for lunch and for dinner another night. So it served us like 4 meals. And I made yellow rice to go with it. And it's a really satisfying, warm, cozy meal. And I love the flavor of that yellow rice with the chicken divine. And here's one of the plates. Then for my lunches, I used some more of that chicken that from I had baked, and I made salads every day. And I had some salsa in there, some Greek yogurt, some vegetables, some beans that I had canned, and some cheese that I shredded. And it was a nice lunch to have every day, and I pre-made those where I just had to grab them and walk out in the morning. So that was convenient. And then the next day, we had steaks, New York strip steaks, and we hadn't had any beef, and my husband was wanting some beef, so I fried those up in my cast iron pan and added some of my caramelized onions that I had canned that were open. Fried up some fresh mushrooms that needed to be used up. And it was a simple meal. There's some green beans and wax beans that I canned. It was in a mushroom broth, and that was very good. They have a lot of flavor, and I just love wax beans, and you can't just buy them very easily, but when you have your garden, you can have wax beans. So that was dinner for another night. And then I wanted, I guess, diner food. So I had a partial bag of fries that needed to be used up. So I just was going to bake them in the oven quick and simple and easy. And I was breaking them up here because they had become frozen together. So definitely they needed to be used. And then I was going to make Reuben sandwiches. So here I am making the Russian dressing. I am using mayonnaise and ketchup and my home canned pickle relish. There goes the ketchup in, and I just eyeball it. I don't measure it. I do about equal amounts of the ketchup and the mayo. And there's the pickle relish, and you can see there isn't a lot left in that, so I wanted to use up some of that. Mix the mayo and ketchup together until they're evenly mixed and not any lumps of one or the other in there. And then I'm just going to dump in some of the pickle relish. And this was pickle relish that I canned last summer, and oh, it's so good. I used some of the bigger cucumbers that were too big to make pickles out of, but they were perfect for making pickle relish. And it was actually a Mrs. Wages kit, and I would use it again. It was very good. So now I'm going to set that aside. And here's a jar of my home canned corned beef, and this makes the best Reubens. And I have to get it out of the jar. I like it when I can my meats in wide mouth jars, but I think I was out of empty ones, and it went into a small mouth. And now I'm gonna cook it in the cast iron pan until the moisture comes out and it gets a little crispy on the edges. And then I'm opening up sauerkraut, just a can. I didn't have any of my fermented yet, but soon I will. And I'm draining that, getting the excess juice off of it. And while the meat is cooking, and now it's starting to brown, so I'm using the metal spatula to get it off the bottom so it doesn't stick too much. And I will set that aside. And now I'm getting my flat skillet cast iron. I like to cook my sandwiches on that. I'm going to put a little bit of oil on the pan, and I will spread it around. And I have the bread, which was in the freezer, so I needed to use it up. And my cheese had been in the freezer too, so it's not coming off in nice slices, but it's going to all melt in the sandwich anyway. So now I'm going to spread the oil around so it's even. And I don't really want it to be puddles of oil, so I'm going to get a paper towel and dry off some of it, wipe some of it off so it's just a nice sheen on the pan. And once that's done, I can start building the sandwiches. So get rid of the paper towel, come back, and I have already buttered the bread, so I'm going to put the butter side down. Then I put some cheese. You can see it's not like nice pretty slices, but it's fine because it melts. Then I'm going to put some of the sauerkraut, which I had drained. You don't want it to be all wet on the sandwich. And getting that even, and there was one weird looking piece that I threw to the side. And that looks like enough sauerkraut. So now I will take some of the meat and put on top of the sauerkraut, and it's hot. And I had my griddle on a little too high. I should have had the temperature a little lower because it's already cooking on the bottom. And this first sandwich ends up a little brown, but it was still eaten. Jim didn't complain at all. He was hungry and grabbed the first one that was done. So after we have all the meat on, I'm going to put some of the Russian sauce, or Thousand Island, whatever you call it. And we like the sauce on it. If my daughter's here, I don't put the sauce on hers. She does not like anything with mayonnaise. More cheese. And then I'll put another slice of bread on top. I was getting some more cheese. Another slice of bread, and then press it down. And I will wait a few seconds, and I will flip it. And if you look, see, it was getting pretty brown on the other side. Wasn't burnt, but boy, if I'd waited much longer, it sure would have been. But it's very nice and crispy. So, waiting for the other side to cheese to melt and for the bread to toast up. You can see the steam rising from that pan. It was really hot. I ended up having to take that pan off the burner for a couple of minutes to let it cool some to make the next sandwich. So I put the lid on just to make sure the cheese is melted. So press down one last time and trying to peek underneath.
The next night, we decided to have venison burgers. I had some buns in the freezer, so I took out 4 of them and 1 pound of venison burger. And my husband requested that I make them thin burgers. He wanted them to be nice, thin cheeseburgers that spread across the whole bun and even hang off the edge if needed. So I took the pound of burger, split it into 4 even amounts, and I put parchment paper on top of a cookie sheet and pressed it out thin that way, and seasoned the meat with some salt and pepper and a little bit of garlic. And pressing it out on the parchment paper really seemed to help. It was easier than just doing it in my hands, and it pulled up easily enough. And I had some oil in my cast iron pan that was already hot, and so it would get a nice sear on it, and they will cook pretty fast. So I'm getting all 4 patties made and just pressing them out, and then I'll be washing my hands, of course. But it makes them really easy to get thin by doing it that way. And here it is in the pan, and getting the one cooking, waiting for the edges to start turning color. I did put some garlic, minced garlic, in the pan to season the oil and to season the outside. And we like doing it that way with like the chunks of garlic, just the jarred stuff that you keep in the refrigerator. And it really seasons the meat well and gives it good flavor. So it's starting to steam now, and I will be flipping the burger. You can see it moves, it's not attached. Flip it. Now I got 2 in there. And because they were so big around, I really couldn't fit more than 2 in this pan easily. So I had to do them in stages. But then I'll put them on the cookie sheet there and to add the cheese to and to melt it. And that worked out really well. And then on mine, I'm going to put some of my red cabbage slaw. It's my last jar. I got out some of our dill pickles, and here's the finished product. And I did toast the buns in the pan when I was done with the burgers, since they had been frozen. That made them better. So now the next night, which was actually Saturday night, I decided to make homemade pizza because I had canned and had some left over tomato puree. So I wanted to use it up. So I'm making some homemade pizza sauce there. I added some brown sugar, some garlic, some onion powder, some oregano, a little bit of brown sugar to sweeten it and depthen, make the flavor deeper. Give it more flavor between, like with the Worcestershire and the brown sugar and the spices. And there's the Worcestershire. And I'm saying that wrong, I know, but you know what I mean. Adding some more oregano to it. And I will give this a stir, and I will put it on the pan. Put the pan on the stove on low and let it simmer down some while I make the pizza crust. And I like using sauce that I mix up myself as opposed to jar bought-in sauce. I mean, I do that sometimes, but I think this has a better taste. So now I had 1 package of sweet Italian sausage in the freezer that needed to be used up. So I'm going to break it into like little mini like meatball type pieces and brown them on the griddle, get them cooking, and then that will be our meat topping on the pizza. And it made a lot, so I actually ended up freezing some of this that I browned for next time we have pizza night because it was more than I needed. But now it's all cooked and it's ready to go, and it'll make for a much quicker pizza night too, which is good. And it used up that meat that was in the freezer that would end up being freezer burned. So once I get all the pieces broke up, I'll brown them on the stove top, breaking them up. I didn't want it to be just little ground pieces. And now I'm starting to make my pizza crust. And I'm using yeast and letting it bloom here. I am not a great dough maker, but I enjoy it and I've gotten better at it. So here I am kneading the pizza dough, and this recipe will make enough for 2 cast iron pans, 2 deep dish pizzas. So that is what my plan was, and I ended up making them both the same. I was gonna do them different, and then I had enough of the Italian sausage and everything just to make 2 the same. So I'm getting it kneaded now, and then I will put it in the bowl with some oil and let it rise. And I love kneading dough. So here, after it's risen, I've punched it down and I've put it into the cast iron pan, adding my sauce. I love that bright red color. And I have the crust going up the sides a little bit and spreading the sauce out evenly on both pans. And I ended up with just a couple of spoons of sauce left that I used to put on my pizza when it came out of the oven, because I like mine extra saucy. So doing a final spread of the sauce. And now I had some mozzarella cheese, and I'm going to shred that, and I'm getting out my Pampered Chef hand shredder, and I'm going to shred it directly onto the pizzas rather than shred it into something else and then dirty another pan or another dish. And I prefer to shred my own as opposed to buying pre-shredded. I think it melts better, and it's better value to buy. And so that's how I always do it. And sometimes I even, put extras in the freezer when it's on sale. It changes the texture a little, but it still melts great. Now the sausage is going on. And sausage is the only meat we were having on the pizza this time because that's what I had in the house. I could have took some ham out and thawed, but I didn't. Now I'm adding some canned mushrooms. I always keep canned mushrooms on hand. I want to can my own mushrooms, but I never find a good enough sale here. So that's my goal, is to find mushrooms on sale and can my own. So I'm going to rinse my hands off, wipe them off, and now I had part of an onion from the hamburgers, so I'm going to thinly slice some onion slivers to go on top. We don't like a lot of onion, but a little bit we do like the flavor of. Sometimes I put green pepper on. I didn't this time. I think I just was done slicing. I just wanted to be done. So I just put a little bit of onion on both of them. And it's good to use up all these little bits and pieces that I had in the freezer and in the crisper. That's the one thing I do like about making pizzas, is you can just use everything you have. So I am going to get Parmesan cheese now, and I'm going to sprinkle Parmesan cheese on top. And a little bit more of mozzarella. And I also put some garlic on top and then on the crust. Had to find my grater. So now I'm starting the next pizza. I should have probably done both at the same time, but my brain didn't go that way when I was making these pizzas. So this one will be identical to the other. Here's a little bit of garlic and oregano. And these are ready to go in the oven then, once I get everything just so, just finish fussing over it. Not sure why I do that, but I do. I fuss over it, want it to look nice and spread out evenly. Have the dough right. And here's the finished products. We ended up eating one of these and the other will go in the fridge. And here is my sauerkraut fermentation.
So thank you everyone for watching, and I hope this gives maybe you some ideas of what to do with some of your items in your pantry. And this was the easy week. This is the first week, so it's going to be easier. but I'm going to keep tracking everything and doing little videos of it. And I also wanted to give an update on Mom. She got so much better this week. I mean, I don't know if she'll ever come out of the nursing home, but I was able to call her. She was calling Dad, and she's doing physical therapy. She can hear again. So it seems like she's bouncing back from the COVID, at least to have some quality of life compared to how she was for the past, 6-7 weeks. So thank you for your prayers. I so appreciate them, and I know my family does too. So thank you, and I will come back next Sunday with an update for my pantry challenge. And if you like this video and want to see videos of what I'm making, what I'm canning, subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you here. Thank you so much, everyone, and see you next time at Pike Creek Farm.